Fantasy Football Lounge, the fantasy show that rushed for 180 yards and 2 scores in this weekend's blowout win to Oakland. This we're going to show off the players of the week, the highlight players that happened this week, the best scores, and the biggest goats you just started and lost the game to. Starting out with players of the week, we're going with each position. This is quarterback. This week's player is Chad Pennington, whom I know you didn't start, but he got 319 yards and 2 touchdown scores against, admittedly, Tennessee, which is not the greatest. He practically deserves a shout-out for just staying healthy through a game, let alone throwing 319 yards. It's a great sign that the New York Jets could really get going here, and the quarterback was the focal point of the offense. That being said, if you're going to start him next week in this tough matchup against New England, you may want to think twice.
Yeah, I'm just amazed Pennington managed to get the ball past the line of scrimmage. I thought that arm was dead, but
oh no, he can throw the ball.
He looked like a real quarterback. Sure, he's playing against the Titans, but he looked real.
Well, it was the Titans.
Yeah.
I have to wonder how many yards I could throw a quarterback against the Titans. I'm guessing 200, a minimum.
I was going to say 280.
I got the wide receivers, and there's 2 guys I want to give shout-outs to. First one is Dante Stallworth. 141 yards and a score. It's really a spectacular performance. That said, he was playing Houston.
It's important to note that Dante Stallworth's career also has been marred with inconsistency. I mean, it's an excellent performance. We got to see what he does next week.
Next one guy I want to talk about is Lavernius Coles. In this from Chad Pennington, he got 8 receptions for 153, getting a lot of looks, a lot of yards. This is a good situation. Once again, we're looking at against the Titans, but he's elevated his game.
One minor thing to note here, because I like jumping in and hearing my sound in my own voice, is that Jericho Crotch Boy, winds up being a red zone threat. He's always been targeted heavily there, so you may want to temper your expectations somewhat.
You get those kind of yards, though, you'll be happy.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you, but
yeah.
It's my turn.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Good job.
I have some. Thank you. I have some obvious ones. Of course, LaDainian Tomlinson did very well. Of course, he was going against
the worst team in the
USC's
NFL.
marching band, I'm pretty sure.
No, USC's marching band
We apologize to any viewers who like USC.
or their marching band. We know
Or
they're
marching
better
bands in
football.
general.
We know that the marching band would try harder to win the game than the Raiders did on Monday.
Oh, they were trying to win the game.
No, Randy Moss wasn't. You watch the guy. There's
apparently because you've got 131 yards rushing with 31 attempts, touchdown, 4-yard average.
Yeah.
There wasn't much defense there, but still he's a great player. We've also got Frank Gore. I put him up there because he had 2 touchdowns and nobody else did.
He had a great showing.
He did. There's only 87 yards, but
well, that's 87 yards on the ground. He had over
160 combined total yards.
160 combined total yards. He was rushing. He was receiving. The only thing is, playing Arizona and the 49ers playing, it's like a magnifying glass. Everyone on the offenses looks better because you can just run up and down the field.
Okay, now did you guys watch that game, and did you notice how the announcers kept talking about how great Arizona is?
Really, do that every year?
They're trying to sell the new stadium. They already sold the
Big Taco Stadium.
And here they are having a tough time beating the 49ers. So
yeah, well,
I'm sorry, I just had to spit that out. Moving right along.
Yes, John, thank you very much for that. Tight end this week, there's a lot of tight ends who did a good job, but I'm going to pull out Kellen Winslow here because he may have very well been undrafted or very late round. It wasn't exactly a tough defense they played against. 63 yards from the score is pretty good for your first NFL showing. He was hit 8 times. He's targeted a few more by Fry. It's pretty obvious that Charlie Fry is targeting Kellen Winslow frequently on the field. It's pretty good numbers for a guy who's really never finished in an NFL game completely, but Cincinnati defense next week will be a little tougher for him. Still, he's looking like a pretty good start every week.
My defense of the week is Baltimore.
3 sacks. He had 3 picks. There's a touchdown, and they pitched a shutout. Reminding you back of the days of, 2002?
Oh, yeah, they looked great out there. They destroyed a team who was supposed to beat them.
Baltimore Ravens were a train wreck last year. Is this showing they're back to 2002 form? Well, to see what they do next year, but that was a great showing.
Yeah.
It's hard to say after one game.
Those are the guys that did good. Those are the guys you gave pat on the heads to after you started them in your fantasy lineup. Now for the ones who are busy kicking like a rented mule. And I'll start with the GOAT of the week with Roy fucking Williams, who I managed to start this week. I won, sure, but his 36 yards and 3 catches didn't exactly do any good for me. It's good. It's actually not too terribly bad. It's great news to know that Roy Williams has assured me that they will win, the Detroit Lions will win against Chicago, because in the press coverage, Roy Williams has assured that Detroit will go to Chicago and win. So based on Roy Williams' boundless optimism that has nothing to do with reality, I am confident I can start him next week because they're going to destroy the Chicago Bears.
My goat of the week is Jake, which team am I playing for? Snake Plumber. He had 138 yards, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble. He was a disaster. He looked so lost. I was waiting for Jay Cutler to walk out there and save that team.
Welcome to the Jay Cutler for 2006 bandwagon. I want the Senate.
Yeah, Jay Cutler for next week. Please.
I'm also going to take a quarterback, mainly because I don't like the Cowboys. So
Who does?
yeah, Cowboys fans, both of them. But anyway, 246 yards isn't too shabby. 1 TD, that's not too bad, but 3 interceptions, and they just weren't at a good time. There's never a good time, obviously, but boy.
Yeah, there is. There's a good time when you're not on my team. It's a great time to throw interceptions.
It just seemed to kind of rip the heart out of them, and I was laughing about it, so.
So was Tony Romo.
You know, I always thought Bledsoe was a bust of a pick when people were drafting him this high. One good wide receiver does not a good quarterback make, as Yoda might very well have said, the wise mage himself. But that being said,
Yoda said that?
Yeah. Did you see the outtake section? But at any rate, he's just because they had Terrell Owens does not mean Bledsoe is all of a sudden going to become a great quarterback. Drew Bledsoe is inaccurate. Drew Bledsoe has problems when he's being rushed. He's completely immobile, and that offensive line is really not that great. So I'm not surprised to see this sort of a showing. When the pressure's on, Drew Bledsoe does not perform well. And since everyone agrees with me, we'll end it right there before it gets any worse. Moving on to the next section will be our start-sit column. I'm going to go ahead and name people and guys, they do things, and other people talk and I drink. Quarterback, I chose players are no-brainers. I think, yeah, Peyton Manning, you start him. But if you're looking for a quarterback, I'm thinking Alex Smith this week, and I don't think it's all that bad of an option. He looked pretty good playing Arizona Cardinals. He may have finally stepped up to things. Who knows? At any rate, you couldn't do worse. They're playing at home against the St. Louis Rams this week, and I don't think that the St. Louis Ram defense has improved this, got lucky. You could do a lot worse, and you can find Alex Smith on your waiver wire. If you're hurting, I think that's a pick.
The Rams' defense looks like they may have improved, but it could also be that Jake Plummer just didn't know what the hell he was doing.
I can't imagine the Rams' defense is that good.
And Alex Smith actually started to develop last week, so I think that's a good option.
If you look at Eli Manning, he had a similar path. He was very terrible the first year, and then when he was brought in the second year, showed signs of improvement.
Eli Manning didn't look bad last week, though he's still definitely developing.
His first year he was in.
His first year. Second
terrible.
year, he actually, statistically, he was worse last year than he was the first year.
Well, the point is he looked a hell of a lot better this last year than he did the first year. Yeah. Anyway.
It takes a lot of quarterbacks a long time to get up to speed.
Myself, for a young quarterback who I think is going to have a good week, I would go with Phillip Rivers. He's up against Tennessee, and you said you could pass against Tennessee. I could pass.
Yeah, I could pass against Tennessee, but Phillip Rivers will not pass against Tennessee.
Phillip Rivers didn't pass a tremendous amount, but he was decent while he was passing last week. He'll have more chances to pass against this Tennessee secondary. Which
he got 108 yards last week.
He got 108 yards.
But he had about 5 attempts or something.
He's like going to pass. I would not start Phillip Rivers. I'm not arguing. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I just don't think he's going to do you any good on your fantasy team because he's not going to pass if he does not have to. And with Tennessee, he will not have to.
He's not going to lead you into some kind of negative points land like Jake Plummer is, or
but
he's not going to make the mistakes. He'll probably get a score.
15 other quarterbacks will probably do better.
If you're looking around and you just lost Trent Green or whatever, and you need a quarterback, I think this is a great situation to plug him in.
I don't think Phillip Rivers is a bad quarterback. I just don't think he's going to do you any well fantasy-wise because he's not going to throw. That's your quarterback picks. For running back, my pick this week is going to be Amon Green. You may not have noticed because it was a miserable score, but he actually put up 110 yards against a really tough Chicago defense. This week, they're still at home, and they're playing New Orleans. I think Green's going to hit pay dirt. I think the new Green is going to look a lot like the old Green. I think it's a good idea to put Ahman Green in this week.
So I think the New Orleans defense has improved. But he put
Sure.
he put up 100 yards against the Bears.
I have to agree with you on Ahman Green. When you're losing that badly and you're getting 110 yards, when your offense has to throw the ball.
Completely
and try
shut
to-
out, yeah.
Exactly. And you still get 110 yards. That's pretty impressive.
It's shocking to me that they didn't stick with him more often during that game. I mean, he's working for them.
Well, again, when you're that far behind, you have to throw.
Now, in terms of guys we've thrown on the scrap heap, I got to look at for this weekend, Jamal Lewis. So
Yeah.
he may be on your bench this week. He's up against
Playing Oakland.
He's
Yeah.
up against Oakland.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you looking for? If you're not going to start Jamal Lewis this week, you must have Larry Johnson and LT on your roster.
Last year, you jumped at the chance to play against the Houston defense. This year, you're going to jump at the chance to play at Oakland defense. They are the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, it's like the only guy I saw trying out on the field there was Michael Huff. He's like, oh, I'm so excited to be playing in the NFL.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing?
Yeah. God help to get off this team.
Yeah, so I think this is your great situation for Jamal Lewis.
What about Chester Taylor?
He was good last week. Good enough.
Yeah, Chester Taylor's going into the must-start column. I mean,
Yeah, no, and not only that, but the Panthers, they look sad as a team. Not Raiders bad.
No.
the Panthers lost their starting tackle this week. On top of that, Steve Smith with the hamstring out. The Panthers are woefully one-dimensional. They couldn't run against Atlanta, who was notorious for being terrible against the run last year. Maybe their defense has improved. They certainly tried. Moving right along, so wide receiver picks this week. Again, I'm going a little bit against the grain, but I am going to go out on a limb and say Lee Evans this week. He got completely blanketed by New England's defense last week, but Miami has always been a little bit soft against the run and soft against the pass and very tough against the run. They're probably going to take McGahee out immediately. Lee Evans, being a deep threat, might get behind there, and J.P. Losman, much as I hate to admit it, actually looked a lot better last week. He looked inconsistent at times, so he definitely looked much better than he did in 2005. I think Lee Evans, if you're hurting for wide receiver help, could be a real nice pickup this week.
I think wide receivers are about the hardest position to pick because you just never know who's going to go off at any particular week.
Oh, yeah.
And you look at the stats, and it's like there's a few guys that do really well, a few guys that do really shitty, and then all these other guys in the middle that do mediocre. They happen to get a couple of guys that do really.
So the guy I want to talk about here, somebody might be giving up on after last week, Joe Horn. Once again, Joe Horn's running up against the Packers, and there's this is just
Correct me if
okay.
I'm wrong.
The Packers were number one against the pass last year. Okay. But that's because the other teams had already won so often. The biggest problem for Joe Horn would be that the Saints may be up so early that that they stop passing.
Do me a favor, because I'm seriously hard of hearing. I thought you just talked about Joe Horn. Is that right?
Yeah, Joe Horn.
Seriously, they played New Orleans played Cleveland last week. Yeah.
New Orleans played Cleveland last week, and
Joe Horn got 25 yards.
Joe Horn got 25 yards, but I don't think you should. But once again, wide receiver, it's inconsistent. I don't think you should give up on him.
So I got a couple picks here, and the next one on the tight end. Ben Watson, not exactly a sleeper, but if you're playing against the New York Jets this week, wasn't phenomenal last week, but you could do a lot worse against the New York Jets. The other one I would say is Dallas Clark. I think he might finally lift his potential in Indianapolis. They're playing Houston at home this week, and Indianapolis is running a lot of two tight end sets after Brandon Stokely went out, and their seeming inability to run the ball. Well, we're moving right along to the defense, the last part. I'm going to throw out a few out there for the picks of things you might have drafted. Indianapolis defense this week is a much start. They're always a lot better at home than they are on the way, and they're playing Houston, so I think they're a must start this week. If you're busy playing matchups, it's a bit sneaky, but you may want to try plugging in Minnesota defense this week. They played Carolina, and they were awful last week. If Steve Smith is still unable to go, and you're playing matchups on the week, Minnesota might be the play to make this week.
Yeah, unless Steve Smith gets back out there,
Yeah, if Steve Smith plays, you don't want to play this game. But if he doesn't, it might be a sneaky pick.
Okay.
And now it's news. Latest news. As we always say here at Fantasy Football Lounge, the best news is news about your opponent's players. But here's some good news. If you got Deion Branch, he was just traded to the Seahawks Monday night, which is making us feel probably at least a little bit nervous. Deion Branch is traded to the Seahawks and the Patriots. In return, the Patriots will receive the first-round pick from the Seahawks in 2007. As it turns out, the next day, the Seahawks signed Deion Branch to a 6-year contract, $39 million with $13 million in guaranteed money. It's one of the situations where I think it's not as good. It's better for the Seattle Seahawks than it is for fantasy players.
Absolutely, absolutely.
For somebody who picked up Nate
What do you think?
I'm kind of regretting that choice now, but
Yeah.
but here's the bottom line here: is you've got a Pro Bowl wide receiver in the prime of his career, and you give up a first-round pick for him. That's not bad. I mean, you think about it. If this team does remotely close to what they do last year, it's a high-round pick. So you're basically picking this guy for your first-round pick.
He may be a Pro Bowl wide receiver, but has he ever got 1,000 yards?
No, he's gotten close, 980 something.
And once again, he played in the Patriot system, which Tom Brady tosses the ball around.
Yeah.
That's the and that's what you're going to see in the Seahawks again. It's the you're already pretty close to that. Hasselbeck tosses the ball around. Now he's going to toss it around further. Everyone's value is diminished.
Now Hasselbeck does tend to pick it almost seems like a receiver of the week, where he'll key in on that guy, and that guy will get 100 yards and a touchdown. But so I think he'll do better in this system because, like you said, Brady spreads the ball around a lot. He doesn't key on any.
Steve Smith. Steve Smith did not play in the Panthers' loss on Sunday. Now, just to keep track, this is his other hamstring injured. First he had his left and then his right. Without Steve Smith, the Panthers are horrible, and his status is still up in the air for the next week. Because the Panthers were so horrible on offense without Steve Smith, rather than giving him extra time, he may be being rushed back out into the field. We still don't know yet, though.
Yeah.
Every time I've seen a player rushed back from a hamstring injury, they pull it even worse.
If you have Steve Smith, if I were you, I'd be drunk the entire season. It's not going to be pretty. I imagine this is going to be an injury. It's going to be recurring all year. If you're hurting for wide receiver help behind Steve Smith, start shopping around, look for other options. In other news, you may have probably already heard about this. Trent Green's going to be out for at least another 2 weeks. In case you didn't know or were buried under a rock or didn't have any oxygen this week, Trent Green suffered a concussion after being literally slapped around in the Kansas City game. His shirt was pretty much covered in grass stains by the end of the game. And at the last play, attempting to get Cincinnati, trying to make a first down, he was knocked out hard. He was called in a stretcher as a concussion. Trent Green will be out as a preventative measure for at least 2 more weeks after the Kansas City bye in Week 3. He is expected at this point to return in Week 4.
So, that was one of the most brutal concussions I've seen in some time. Last year, Chad Johnson had this little poster in his locker room which said, will 85 be stopped? And every week, yes, no.
Yeah.
And so this year, the Bengals defense has a little poster in their locker room which is, did the Bengals defense get vengeance for Carson Palmer's injury in the playoffs? Yes, no.
Was that a legal hit?
Actually, yes.
Yes, most likely. It was not helmet to helmet, it was the chest. And even if you felt that maybe he could have pulled up, it's so questionable, you can't possibly penalize him or fine him for it.
If you're not going to slide in plenty of time for that person to hold up.
It is Kinnison who pushed him into there. So it's it's just too much up in the air. I don't think you can penalize a player for that. Now, fantasy-wise, Trent Green...
Downgrade all Kansas City skill positions.
Actually, there is one guy who seemed to benefit from the situation, and that was Tony Gonzalez, because Heward found a lot of comfort throwing to Gonzalez, so don't be afraid to keep starting him. Well, anyway, Mike Bell. Mike Bell played well. Of course, both he and Tatum Bell played well on Sunday. Mike Bell has a fractured and partially dislocated finger, I believe is the correct term.
Middle finger can no longer flip over the bird, yes.
Yes. So he is not expected to miss time, but Tatum Bell for now has been named the starter, which means nothing.
Because Mike Bell played through
which means about as much as a prostitute saying she loves you. So the issue here for Mike Bell, you still expect him to be given the ball to run, perhaps about the same amount as before, but the real problem is going to be he's going to have trouble receiving the ball. For the time being.
More of a 60-40 split rather than 50-50, Tatum Bell getting the 60. But right now, if you have other options, you can probably do sit Mike Bell for a little while.
Yeah, he's not an awful start, but he's definitely. I mean, he'll probably do a little bit worse than
But you
last
probably
week.
have other starters that work.
You most like if you don't, you're in trouble. But Bell is a little bit better, but still not super. Yeah.
Okay, last news. Oh,
For now.
yes.
For now.
The last news item we have is Jerry Porter, the same guy who was seen pumping his fist and laughing after Aaron Brooks got sacked for the 7th time last night, is, who would have guessed it, now is subject to trade rumors. According to WEII in Boston, John Meterparel, he's an announcer there, he's announcing that the Patriots are pretty close to a deal acquiring Jerry Porter from Oakland Raiders. Other sources, including NFL.com's Pat Carrion, have dismissed this claim.
I wouldn't want to play for the Raiders either. It's a horrible place to be. Sure. I mean, and the Patriots need this help right now.
Yeah, they do.
Tom Brady. I mean, he's down David Gibbons and he's down Deion Branch. For certain now, he doesn't have the wide receiver help he needs.
Based on what I can tell, I believe Doug Gabriel and/or Chad Jackson will be available in the next game. That being said, if Jerry Porter winds up going back to the New England Patriots, he will have a huge, remarkable role in that offense. He's worth keeping an eye on. I think he is definitely worth a roster spot.
Sure, worth a roster spot, yes, but I don't think he's gonna.
If you're hurting, pick him up now.
I don't know.
Pick him up now. What the worst can happen?
If you're hurting, absolutely.
If you're hurting,
sure.
pick him up now. Stash him.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, if he is playing for the Raiders for some reason, he's pretty much, I don't know,
let's crack this in a nutshell. Jerry Porter practiced all week, but on Wednesday he decided to drive in and park in Art Shell's parking position.
Oh, yeah.
And
No. Not Art Shell's position. It was in Al Davis's spot.
Anyway, he is deactivated for this game, after which he was practically laughing when Aaron Brooks got smeared. He cannot be considered a part of Oakland's long-term plans if they have any, and he's going to be shipped out. New England makes a lot of sense. And that's all the news that's fit to print and all the news that's fit to be tied. It's Fantasy Football Lounge. I'm Paul. This is Kyle. This is John. All we're here to say now, good luck next week. Take care.